There are certain people in this world that the Stoics advised us to not associate with. These people can seriously cause harm in your life and weigh you down. In this video today, we will list 15 types of people Stoicism warns us about. Also, if you notice there are people in your life right now demonstrating these behaviors, remove these people from your life immediately. Before we start this video, I would like to say thank you for watching and don't forget to like. And if you are watching this and not subscribed, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell for more life-changing Stoic content. Number 1. The flatterer. One type of toxic person Stoics warn us about is the flatterer. This is someone who showers us with insincere praise and compliments, not because they truly admire us, but because they want something from us. They have an ulterior motive in gaining our favor through excessive flattery. The Stoics advise us to be wary of flatterers and see through their efforts to manipulate us through false praise. A sincere compliment is one thing, but when someone piles on the accolades to an unrealistic degree, they likely have an agenda. The flatterer may be trying to get on our good side in order to ask for a favor, gain power or influence through our approval, or simply stroke their own ego by winning our admiration. Whatever the flatterer's aim, their excessive praise is just a means to an end for themselves, not a genuine reflection of our merits. The Stoics warn us not to be taken in by these tactics. We should question the motivations behind any over-the-top flattery, and be cautious about putting too much stock in the flatterer's words, or giving them what they want. Insincere praise does us no good. The wise course is to see through the flattery to discern the flatterer's true intentions. Number 2. The greedy. Another toxic personality type the Stoics warn us to be wary of is the greedy. These are individuals consumed by material desires and the pursuit of wealth. Their insatiable avarice clouds their judgment and character. For the greedy, accumulating money, possessions, and status symbols is the primary driver in life. They constantly crave more, never feeling they have enough. Even if they are already rich, their greed knows no bounds. They will scheme, exploit, and step on others in order to gain more wealth and possessions. The greedy see life as a zero-sum game where more for them means less for everyone else. They are unwilling to share because they want everything for themselves. Their greed also makes them profoundly insecure. No amount of wealth is ever enough to satisfy them. The Stoics recognize that greed stems from a mindset of scarcity. The greedy are never content because they always feel they lack something. This destroys their peace of mind and integrity. The Stoics advise us not to be consumed by greed. There is great freedom in being satisfied with having enough and focusing on things of true value, character, wisdom, and serenity. The greedy have a distorted set of priorities, chasing money and possessions over virtue and tranquility. Their judgment is compromised by endless cravings. The Stoics warn us not to emulate the greedy or envy their wealth. More does not mean better. Fulfillment comes from within, not from external gains. Number 3. The envious. The envious are another type of toxic individual the Stoics advise us to avoid and not emulate. These are people who resent the talents, successes, or possessions of others. They are continually jealous of what others have. The envious feel that another person's good fortune comes at their expense. They operate from a mindset of scarcity, assuming life is a zero-sum game. So when someone else gains something, they think it means less for them. This breeds resentment, insecurity, and animosity within the envious. They act out of these feelings by trying to undermine those they envy. The envious person will attempt to belittle others' talents, dismiss their success as luck or privilege, and spread nasty rumors. Basically, they try to cut down people they see as above them. Envy also makes the envious person spiteful. They can't stand seeing someone else get ahead, so they try to spoil it rather than find inspiration in others' accomplishments. The envious person's jealousy leads them to make snide remarks, deliver backhanded compliments, and secretly revel when the envied person faces misfortune. The Stoics recognize envy as a type of involuntary moral weakness stemming from lack of wisdom, but they emphasize we can choose whether or not to act from envy. The wise course is to view others with goodwill and celebrate their successes, not resent them. We should be inspired by others' talents to cultivate our own virtues, rather than falling into envy's trap. Number 4. The angry. Another problematic personality type the Stoics warn about is the chronically angry person. These individuals are prone to frequent rages, bitterness, and desires for revenge. Their temper overpowers their reason and judgment. The angry person is set off easily by minor provocations, real or imagined. They tend to view others' actions and words in the worst possible light and are quick to take offense. They carry grudges over long periods, refusing to forgive or let go. Stoics saw the roots of anger as thwarted desires and a sense of helplessness. The angry person feels they are not getting what they deserve from the world. This breeds resentment and the urge to lash out. Rage and retaliation become their way of asserting control. When gripped by anger, the angry person cannot think clearly or act constructively. Their temper clouds their faculties of reason. They are likely to speak harshly and act impulsively based on their bitterness, making the situation worse, not better. The Stoics advise us not to emulate the angry. Though anger may arise involuntarily, we choose whether to act from it. The wise course is pausing for perspective when we feel provoked. Getting swept up in anger only poisons our own lives. It is better to act from reason and self-control, not petty grudges and resentment. As Epictetus stated, any person capable of angering you becomes your master. Number 5, the complainer. The chronic complainer is another tiresome personality type. The Stoics warn us to avoid emulating. Complainers are perpetually negative, criticizing and moaning about their circumstances. They spread gloom rather than light. The complainer finds fault with almost everything: the weather, the government, their job, their relationships. Minor imperfections loom large as massive grievances. The complainer's attitude is, nothing is ever good enough. Rather than take constructive action, the complainer just whines. They play the victim, acting powerless when they could take steps to improve things. The complainer craves others' sympathy and tends to broadcast their grievances widely to get attention. This breeds negativity that drags down themselves and those around them. Complainers don't realize their venting just reinforces their unhappiness. It becomes a toxic mindset. As Epictetus stated, if you wish to improve, be content to appear clueless or stupid in extraneous matters. The Stoics teach us not to emulate the complainers. Though we may face difficulties, we only make things worse for ourselves by excessive lamenting. It's far wiser to focus on making the best of what we can control, taking constructive action rather than wallowing in negativity. Hardships are inevitable, but we decide whether we meet them with wisdom and resilience or futile complaints. Number 6, the self-pitying. Another tiresome personality type. The Stoics caution us against emulating is the self-pitying individual. These people wallow in their own misery and portray themselves as victims at every turn. The self-pitying person takes no responsibility for their circumstances. They blame other people, fate, the universe, anything but themselves for their troubles. Their attitude is, poor pitiful me, I deserve better than this unfair world. This breeds a mentality of powerlessness and resentment. The self-pitying individual expects others to coddle them and make things right. They broadcast tales of woe to elicit sympathy and reassurance they are not to blame. But this actual why keeps the self-pitying person trapped. By making themselves out to be a victim, they evade accountability and the need to take action to improve. Their self-absorption crowds out compassion for what others may be dealing with. The Stoics warn us against the mindset of self-pity. They advise taking a balanced view of life's ups and downs rather than wallowing when faced with adversity. We should focus on what we can control and build resilience, not portray ourselves as victims. Challenges are inevitable, but we decide whether we meet them with maturity or melodrama. As Marcus Aurelius stated, begin each day by telling yourself, today I shall meet with interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness, all due to the offender's ignorance of what is good and evil. Number 7, the arrogant. Another toxic personality type Stoicism cautions against is arrogance. The arrogant possess an inflated sense of self-importance and superiority over others. Their excessive pride blinds them to their flaws and actual standing. The arrogant person presumes they are always right, the best at what they do, and deserving of special treatment. They are convinced of their superior talents, intelligence, status, and entitlements. This leads them to talk down to others and view advice or criticism as beneath them. An arrogant attitude breeds intolerance, disrespect, and hostility towards those deemed lower. The arrogant individual is unable to recognize their mistakes or limitations because that would shatter their grandiose self-image. Their pride leaves no room for humility or self-reflection. This makes the arrogant unteachable. They reject useful feedback that would help them improve or show consideration. They also have trouble forming genuine connections, since relating as an equal does not satisfy their need for dominance and recognition. The Stoics warn against the folly of arrogance. They advise cultivating humility and recognizing our human fallibility. Pride should come from living virtuously, not inflating our own importance. As Marcus Aurelius stated, "You have no right to pass judgment on others at all. Their natures are the ones responsible. Their dispositions have become as they are under compulsion of character and necessity." Number 8. The selfish. Another problematic personality type discussed in Stoic teachings is the selfish individual. These people prioritize their own interests above all else and lack consideration for how their actions impact others. The selfish person tends to view everything in terms of, "What's in it for me?" Their main decision-making calculus is how they can personally benefit. They pursue their own agenda without weighing collateral effects on others. This leads the selfish person to take advantage of people, ignore others' needs, break promises, and shirk duties that do not immediately serve them. They see no issue with benefiting at others' expense. Their excessive self-interest blinds them to their social obligations. This creates a reputation for untrustworthiness and disloyalty. The selfish individual may achieve short-term gains but loses relationships and respect over the long run. Their cynicism and exploitation breed conflict and isolation. They fail to experience the fulfillment of mutual care and support. The Stoics caution that selfishness is ultimately a hollow path. We are social creatures meant to live in harmony, not conflict. Seeking to elevate others brings more meaning than elevating only oneself. As Marcus Aurelius stated, "What brings a person tranquility is to do what's right and to be focused on the well-being of his fellow man." Number 9. The stubborn. Another problematic personality type discussed in Stoic philosophy is the stubborn individual. These people adhere rigidly to their opinions and refuse to listen to reason or compromise. Their inflexibility makes them difficult to deal with. The stubborn person insists on having things their way, no matter what. They are unable or unwilling to consider alternative perspectives, advice, or possibilities. Even clear evidence contradicting them will not sway their entrenched position. This breeds resistance to change and growth. The stubborn individual would rather persist in full lie than adjust course and admit being mistaken. Adopting a more thoughtful approach would require opening their mind instead of clinging stubbornly to assumptions. Their rigid fixity also keeps the stubborn person from accommodating others' needs in relationships and collaborations. Everything becomes a power struggle rather than a mutual exchange. Their way or the highway. This tends to alienate people. Stoicism teaches the folly of stubborn rigidity. While principles are important, the wise retain flexibility in applying them with reason and care. We harm ourselves when we refuse to adapt to changing circumstances or listen to wisdom from others. Our goals should be truth and improvement, not clinging obstinately to fragile ego. Number 10. The insensitive. These people lack empathy and care little about how their words and actions impact others. The insensitive person does not pick up on social cues or understand others' perspectives. They are tone-deaf to what might hurt, offend, or upset someone. They plow recklessly ahead with their agenda without regard for the effects. This insensitivity breeds hurt and resentment. The insensitive person leaves a wake of bruised feelings, anger, and people who feel devalued. Yet the insensitive remain oblivious or indifferent to the harm caused. They do not reflect on how to conduct themselves with greater tact and care. Their harshness and lack of empathy tend to alienate people. Mean-spirited humor, blunt criticism, and callous disregard erode goodwill and trust. The insensitive person's relationships stay shallow because no one feels safe being vulnerable around them. Stoicism advocates developing greater empathy, compassion, and care in our conduct. While we cannot control how others receive us, we should aim to interact with kindness and consideration. Thoughtlessness yields discord and isolation. Thoughtfulness yields understanding and community. As Marcus Aurelius stated, a wrongdoer is often unaware that he is doing wrong. Number 11. The cynical. Another toxic personality type discussed in Stoic philosophy is the cynic. Cynical people dismiss sincerity, idealism, and goodness as gullible or foolish. Their reflexive skepticism poisons hope and erodes community. The cynic assumes the worst of people's motives in anything positive. They are scornful of virtues like honesty, compassion, and altruism. believing no one genuinely upholds such principles. The cynic's default is derision and distrust. This cynical posture stems from disappointment and protects their ego. If they reject virtue as real, the cynic avoids feeling naive for believing in goodness or let down when it fails. Yet their skepticism becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, pushing people away and degrading what they doubt. The cynic's caustic remarks and hair-trigger doubt tend to alienate others. Their derisive humor and refusal to believe the best corrode human connections. Beneath their protective scorn lies sadness about the good they feel cheated of. Stoicism teaches that while evil exists, we must retain faith in our collective potential for virtue and goodness. Cynicism is corrosive. It saps our power to improve society. Though disappointed, we must remain open to sincerity and work together to increase justice and compassion in the world. As Marcus Aurelius stated, when you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. Number 12. The manipulative. Another toxic personality type discussed in Stoic teachings is the manipulator. Manipulators exploit and deceive others for personal gain. Their duplicity makes them untrustworthy. The manipulative person treats interactions like chess games to strategize advantage for themselves. They plot how to play people against each other, twist situations to their benefit, gain influence through false alliances, and coerce outcomes in their favor. This ruthless calculus makes the manipulator cunning but untrustworthy. They cultivate a facade of goodwill and sincerity, but it masks their self-serving agenda. The manipulator forms bonds superficially, dropping people once they lose usefulness. Their motives always override connection. This exploitative approach to relationships inevitably backfires. The manipulator may achieve some short-term victories through cunning schemes, but their deceitfulness and betrayal of confidences catch up with them. People come to see through the manipulator's two-faced charade and refuse to be used any longer. The Stoics recognize that deceit and exploitation ultimately fail and isolate the perpetrator. Treating others with sincerity and respect, seeing them as fellow humans deserving of dignity, not pawns, is the only ethical and prudent way. Manipulation can never breed true cooperation. Number 13. The reckless. Another problematic personality type discussed in Stoic teachings is the reckless individual. Reckless people take unnecessary risks and fail to consider the consequences of their actions. Their carelessness endangers themselves and others. The reckless person loves courting danger and pushing limits with little forethought. They get a thrill from taking foolish gambles, ignoring warning signs, and engaging in hazardous behavior without precautions. They seem to believe the rules don't fully apply to them. This recklessness breeds disaster down the line. The reckless person leaves a wake of crises that could have easily been avoided with prudence and self-control. Their lack of discipline impacts not just themselves but all those affected by their poor choices. Yet even when their recklessness causes harm, the reckless individual fails to learn. They rationalize away mistakes, avoid accountability, and continue blindly indulging their whims. They fail to cultivate wisdom by reflecting on their errors. Stoicism stresses living rational why, not recklessly. While courage has its place, true bravery tempers boldness with reason to produce virtue, not hazard. Recklessness benefits no one in the end. We have duties to ourselves and others to show disciplined self-control, face consequences, and learn from mistakes. As Seneca stated, nothing is more dishonorable than rashness. Number 14. The unprincipled. Another problematic personality type discussed in Stoic philosophy is the unprincipled individual. These people lack integrity and moral standards. They will go to unethical lengths to get what they want. The unprincipled person does not feel bound by concepts of right and wrong. They are willing to lie, cheat, steal, betray, break promises, and harm others in pursuit of their ambitions. The end always justifies the means in their calculus. This creates an anything-goes mentality. The unprincipled person follows no inner sense of ethics or conscience. They have no trouble deceiving those who trust them or exploiting people's weaknesses for gain. Other people are just obstacles or tools. This unscrupulous approach inevitably backfires. The unprincipled person becomes untrustworthy and despised once their duplicity emerges. They leave a trail of disillusionment and lives damaged by their unethical actions. Any achievements they gain prove hollow. Stoicism stresses that pursuing virtue and noble purposes is the only path to true success. While worldly ambitions come and go, moral integrity endures. We must be willing to lose everything external before sacrificing inner principles. In the end, the unprincipled have nothing of lasting worth. As Marcus Aurelius stated, a branch cut away from the branch beside it is simultaneously cut away from the whole tree. Number 15. The vicious. The final toxic personality type Stoicism warns about is the vicious individual. These malicious people take pleasure in cruelty, domination, and causing harm to others. Their callousness makes them profoundly dangerous. The vicious person sees compassion as weakness and derives satisfaction from inflicting pain. They are bullies who terrorize the vulnerable to assert power, or they subtly torment their targets mentally and emotionally. Their aggression covers deep sadism and insecurity. This active destructiveness poisons the vicious person's relationships and community. Their cruelty and exploitation of the weak breed fear and distrust. They leave trauma and despair in their wake. Their malice is an illness of the soul contagious to all they contact. Stoicism stresses that as social beings, our fates are intertwined. Harming others ultimately harms ourselves. We must vigorously resist the lure of gratuitous cruelty, which destroys human dignity and bonds. True strength comes from uplifting others through empathy and care. The vicious pose a grave threat when in positions of power. Stoicism calls on us to renounce and check those who revel in causing harm. A healthy society allows no room for malice. As Marcus Aurelius stated, to harm others is to harm yourself. The vicious may seem to gain temporarily through evil, but they lose their humanity in the process. If you're listening to this, thank you for staying till the end. If you feel any of these Stoic lessons resonated with you today, feel free to start a Stoic discussion in the comments. I welcome Stoic discussions as they are what the great Stoics like Marcus Aurelius and Seneca advised for. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like. And if you want more content like this, subscribe and hit the bell. Thank you for watching, and as always, I hope you find peace and serenity in the Stoic ways.